Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am super excited to be jumping on the microphone with you all for episode number 158. I hope you enjoyed my latest episode, number 157, where we talked all about 5 benefits of showing up, especially when you don't want to. If you are someone who struggles to show up during times when you don't feel like it, there's all the excuses in the world. You know that you have more time to get it done if you want to, and you're someone who kind of just pushes things into the future. I definitely encourage you to check out that episode so you can learn some benefits of taking action in the present moment and how that can better serve your life. For today's episode, number 158, we are going to be talking about 10 different ways to help you self-soothe. I want you guys to know that I know exactly what it's like to feel like you can't regulate your emotions, to feel like a tsunami within your body of overwhelm when you're fighting so hard against how you're feeling and how you want to feel. And it's almost like we have this internal battle going on because we want to feel a certain way. We have this expectation of how we're supposed to feel, but our body and our mind are just not on the same page. And it can cause us to just attack ourselves, feel really crummy about ourselves, and it can actually cause us to shut down further. There have been so many times in my life where I have felt uncontrollable, overwhelmed emotions to the point where I feel like I can't breathe. And so if you're resonating with this at all, I definitely encourage you to continue tuning in. I wanted to do this episode because this is something that I know affects a lot of people. It's also something that I know isn't talked about very often. We're taught to either suppress our emotions, to hide our emotions. And then I think on the contrast, when we're told to feel our feelings, it's almost like, what does that mean? To feel our feelings, if we've never been shown, taught, demonstrated how to do that, where the heck do we even begin? And so today I wanted to talk about the concept of self-soothing, which is basically the ability to reset and calm our bodies, nervous system, and self back to a state of homeostasis. I do want to preface before I get into these 10 different ways that self-soothing is something that takes time. It takes practice. It takes repetition. And so I encourage you to be gentle with yourself. If you were to take one of these and try to implement them into your life, be gentle with yourself through that process. Because if we've never, again, had an experience of tending to our emotions and soothing our emotions, it's going to feel foreign to us. And so I think that when we try something that's never been done for us before, we've never given to ourselves, it can almost feel icky. It can feel weird. We can have resistance to it. And so I want you to know that whatever surfaces during these moments is, again, the message from your body. Whenever we're feeling any type of way in our body, it's demonstrating and showing us that for a reason. It never just gives us cues and gives us these emotions for funsies. There's always an underlying trigger or association that we might not be aware of cognitively, but your body remembers that. It stores it within itself. And so I just want to preface being gentle with yourself, because I remember the first time my therapist had given me some of these different tools and I tried them. And at first they almost felt more overwhelming. Because to me, that sense of self-love in those moments, I didn't feel worthy of. I felt cowardly, like I'm not deserving of this. And I think that when we have all those internal biases and things coming up, it's just, again, a representation of what our relationship is with ourselves and how we've been shown that permission in our lives before. And so before I dive in, I think it's very important that we talk about what self-soothing is. What does that even mean? And I want you to kind of come up with your own reasoning and definition and what this means to you, because self-soothing to you is going to be different, look different, feel different than it does to me. And that's okay. That's why I wanted to list as many as possible in the hopes that even one of them would land for you guys. And so self-soothing is basically when you think of a baby who is crying and who is upset. And mom or dad or guardian is there for them to soothe them, to rock them, to hold them, to feed them, to tend to them, to talk to them, to calm them down. That would be an example of an external sense of soothing. Self-soothing is basically when we calm down our own emotions. Some of us have had to do this since a very, very young age if you unfortunately had parents who weren't emotionally available. You might have had to do this for your whole life without even recognizing that you were doing self-soothing techniques. I think there's so many things that we do as adults that we don't recognize in hindsight were things that got us through really hard times as children. And I think that it's actually a really beautiful thing when we can begin to be like, hey, I've been there for me through some of the hardest times in my life. And has it shaped me into an adult that has a hard time feeling my emotions and maybe has a hard time thinking that I can calm myself down? But likely if you've undergone childhood trauma or you have past experiences, you're way better at calming down your system than you realize, or that you've maybe ever given yourself credit for. I want these to be more conscious ways to soothe yourself versus times as children where soothing ourselves could look like kind of rocking in our bed. It could look like rubbing our feet together. It could look like humming ourselves to sleep. There's so many different ways. Sucking your thumb is also a huge one that we don't recognize is a way for children to self-soothe their nervous system. But until we begin to associate these things as such, I think we begin to have a negative relationship with what that looks like for us. And again, all of our childhoods look different. How this lands with each of us is going to be different, but there is always going to be times in our life when we need to calm ourselves down. There's going to be times when there aren't people there that we can depend on. And we know, and we are promised ourselves. And so if we can begin to work on that and work on that relationship with us and have that guarantee, then being able to lean on people externally is just a bonus. But I think so much of this starts with ourselves, because if we become hyper dependent on expecting other people externally to be there for us and they're not, we're going to feel let down all the time. I'm just going to turn my page here. I hope it's not too loud. And so when I was writing these things down, these were things that A, have worked for me, B, I have used and given to hundreds of clients that I have worked with. I used to do something called building your resiliency toolbox, which if you've been tuning in for a while, you know I have a love-hate relationship with the word resiliency, because I think that in some ways it lessens the effects of certain things by saying we are resilient. Yes, we overcame it, but it kind of diminishes the effects of those events on our life. And so we did used to call it a resiliency toolbox. And it was basically things that I would give clients so that out of session, when they were to get triggered, they were to get overwhelmed, they could have these things in their back pocket that they could utilize between sessions. I've used each and every one of these on here. And so I'm not going to speak that one works better than the other, simply for the fact that these are all going to work differently with each of us, depending on our traumas, depending on our past, also depending on what we're going through in that moment. Are you a level 2 overwhelmed or a level 10 overwhelmed? The state in which it takes you to get back to your window of tolerance, back to your homeostasis state, might also take longer some days than others. And so through all of this, it's really important that we're gentle on ourselves. And that is the first one that I had wrote down is when you're in those moments of overwhelm, we have to look at what that even is. When we are in that state of overwhelm, something in your body has associated something externally as a danger or as a trigger. It overwhelms us. This can also be chronic stress if we have a hard day. When all these things kind of start to pile on top of each other, you will know when you're in that state. And again, this is going to look different. It could be a pileup of things. It could be something that happened really out of the blue and is weighing heavily on you. It's going to be very situational and circumstantial. But the first thing that I always encourage you to do, my clients to do, myself to do in those moments is to remind yourself that it will pass eventually and to be gentle with yourself. Knowing that our mind and body only send those signals because it's trying to look out for us was one of the most permission-giving things I had ever been taught. Like, hey, you wouldn't be feeling this way if something within you didn't think something was off. Your whole body's responsibility and job, whether we believe that sometimes or not, is to keep you safe. It is to love on you, and it is there to protect you. It is not your enemy. But what happens is we begin to villainize ourselves because we think that our body and mind is taking over and it's not fair, and we fight it and we suppress it. And then guess what? It gets louder and it gets worse. And then that shame spiral kind of starts to increase. And so the reason I wrote this one down first is because if we are not gentle on ourselves in that moment, it's just going to heighten the state in which we're in. It's often going to prolong how long we're feeling it. Because if we have extra shame on top of all those cues already, it's almost going to feel impossible to get out of it. So that is the first, I can't say first today, I'm like stuttering on it. The first self-soothing technique that I wrote down is more of a mindful one. And this one, I think, depending on how often you feel like you get into that overwhelm, it could be important for you to have little social cues for yourself. So I have different affirmation cards that I have around, and the reason being is every time I look at them, it reminds me to kind of check in, reminds me to be gentle with myself. And so if you're someone who struggles with this and you want to be more proactive in your mental health and in dealing with overwhelm, I encourage you to have something around you that reminds you to be gentle with yourself, reminds you that this will pass, reminds you that everything that's happening is happening for a reason, and it's trying to tell something to you. So that is the first one that I wrote down. And I want you to know that you're not alone. I know that in those moments, it feels like you are the only one in the world feeling those things. I've gotten really good at suppressing when I'm feeling that way because we feel very individualized. We feel like it's just us, which again, when we suppress that energy, it has nowhere to go but stay in our body. And eventually that's going to have to come out. And so be gentle with yourself. Mental health affects all of us differently. It doesn't make you different. It doesn't make you less than. It makes you human. What can set you apart, though, is how you tend and deal to that. So that is number one. The rest of the 9 that I wrote down are more physical techniques that you can actually do. The first one that I wrote down is to change your environment. This was one that I had learned about when I was learning about children and youth. One of the best things that you can do to calm down a baby or a toddler who is in that just really overwhelmed, can't stop crying state is to change their environment. Take them outside, take them into a different room. When we're in an environment that for some reason is causing us to spiral, causing us to be overwhelmed, is blocking us in some way, shape, or form, it's important we remove ourselves from that, even for a little bit of time. If it's possible for you, going outside is one of the best things that you can do to change your state. Getting under the sun is one of the best things that we can do to change our state. But if you are feeling that sense of overwhelm, one of the best ways that we can soothe ourselves is to get out of the environment. If you are at work, if you're somewhere where you can't do this for a long period of time, even just getting up from your desk, getting up from what you're doing and going to the washroom could be all your nervous system is needing. But when we sit and we stay in those thoughts, because typically when we sit and we stay, that catastrophizing begins to speed up, begins to heighten for us. Whereas if we halt and we pause and we shift and we change what we're doing, it allows our mind to kind of shift into a different mindset and a different perspective. But if we stay doing the same thing, we're likely going to begin to feel the same thing, and it almost begins to get momentum. It begins to speed up. That anxiety begins to get worse. And so that is the first technique that I have for you guys, is to physically try to change your environment. Get up, go for a walk, move around, go outside, change up what it is that you're doing, knowing that you can go back to it. Sometimes this only takes 30 seconds to a minute, but that one is really, really helpful and something that can be a very quick, I don't want to say fix, but a very quick pivot for us to change our mindset. Number 2, stretch, flow, dance, walk, move. Try to move your body so that we can let out any kind of blocked energy going on. I don't want you to overcomplicate this one, because I know that this one is typically most beneficial when we are in a freeze state. When we are overwhelmed, when we go into that freeze state and we're shut down, one of the best ways that we can get out of that is allowing energy to move within our body. Do not overcomplicate this. Typically, when we hear these things, we go, oh my God, I'm super overwhelmed and I'm in a freeze state and you want me to get up and go for a walk? No, I think that it can lead up to that. Some small things that you can do is just moving your wrists, moving your head, moving your ankles. Very, very, very slow movements. If you want to stand up and just slowly stretch your body, stretch your back out, stretch your legs, moving very, very slowly with your breath, with intention, just helps us to move energy within our body. When we get into that freeze state and we kind of halt and our mind is spiraling and or it's dissociated, disconnected, one of the best ways that we can bring it back online is with gentle movement. Be intentional about how it feels for you. Another one on here that I didn't write down that might kind of go with this one is touch. Feel the texture of your shirt. Describe for yourself either in your head or out loud, depending where you are, what it feels like. What does your environment feel like? What does it feel like to move your body in that way? Sometimes soothing ourselves is an in-the-moment practice to just get us to the next moment. I encourage you, as always, if these things are prolonging, if they're happening repetitively, seek professional help. There's likely something within going on that needs tended to. These are more so in the moment to just get you out of that state. It doesn't fix what it is that's going on internally. There's likely something heavier happening. And so the more that we can do these things though and bring our body back online and ground ourselves, the more safe we begin to feel in our body, and the more we're getting ourselves into that window of tolerance and expanding that window of tolerance. So that is number 2. Number 3, one of my favorites. I have one right here. I just put it on before we started. Essential oils or any kind of smell. Your sense of smell is the first sense that brings your thinking brain, that hippocampus back online. When we are triggered, that amygdala is going off, it's sensing a threat, and that prefrontal cortex part of our brain goes offline. When we smell something, it's the first thing that brings us back in the moment. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was at a cafe and I was super, super deep into flow. And then I smelled something that smelled really good. Somebody ordered something delicious. And I noticed myself, it caught my attention. That's because our sense of smell is very, very powerful. And it brings that thinking brain back online. It brings us back to the present moment. And so having something that you can smell, if you are someone who deals with severe mental health issues, or if you are someone who disconnects often, I highly, highly encourage you to get good quality oils and carry them with you. I've been carrying essential oils with me over the last 3 years. They have completely changed my life. And you guys know that I talk about them very often. This one's called Clarity. It's one of my favorites. I use it every single time I do a podcast because it helps me to just be present. And the more that we can bring that thinking brain back online, again, all of this is about just getting back in our body, using these techniques to get back in our body until we can tend to what it is that's going on that's sending us out of our window of tolerance in the first place. Number 4, I love this one. Did this one with my therapist the other day. And it's butterfly tapping or any kind of tapping. So butterfly tapping is basically putting your right hand on the left side of your body and your left hand on the right side of your body. That took me way too long to explain. So basically you're making a butterfly kind of shape. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if I explain that very poorly, think of it almost like you're giving yourself a hug. And or if that still doesn't make sense, I encourage you to Google butterfly tapping. Basically all you're going to do is tap one hand and then the other hand on your collarbone. Tapping is one of the most powerful ways that we can lower our cortisol, which when we lower our cortisol, we know decreases our stress response, meaning our heart rate can come back to normal, meaning our breathing can come back to normal. Our blood pressure can go back to its homeostasis state. And so butterfly tapping in and of itself is very, very powerful and has gotten me through some really, really hard times. When we can do that and focus on our breathing at the same time and try to tell ourselves calm, mindful things such as this will pass, it can just be that much more powerful. This is one that I go to all the time when I'm overwhelmed and really, really helps me to soothe myself. I'm also someone who's not afraid to give myself a hug. Sometimes when we're needing that soothing technique, it's because a part of us just needs to feel love. It just needs to feel seen and validated. And we can give that to ourselves. And it doesn't make you weird. It just makes you really, really good at calming yourself down, which I think is one of the most beautiful things. And so butterfly tapping is really, really helpful and has been very helpful for me. And I've gotten clients to do this in sessions, even when talking to me. Keep talking and keep tapping. Notice how you stay online when you do that. It's hard to go offline when you're consciously thinking about lifting your hands back and forth. Takes practice, takes a little bit of time, but you're so worthy to feel that. And I hope that you know that, because I remember the first time I did it, I'm like, oh, I don't feel worthy of like loving myself and hugging myself. If you can't love and hug yourself, it's really, really hard to accept that and feel worthy of that from other people. And so a lot of that starts with yourself. Number 5, I know some of you guys hate taking baths. You think that they're disgusting. Shower works too. Taking a hot or cold bath, hot or cold shower is really, really good for resetting your nervous system. Not only is water really good for like cleansing and bringing yourself back online, it's also just a safe space to go to calm yourself down, to slow your thoughts. It's one that obviously this is more one that you'd have to do when you're at home and when you have capacity to do so. But another way that you can utilize the water technique is by washing your hands in hot or cold water. Sometimes I find one of the best ways to reset myself is to go and wash my hands in cold water. It just like resets me, right? It kind of sends our system into a sense of shock, but in a good way. And so that is another really, really easy one that we can do. I say easy, and I say easy not in the way that when we're in that state it's easy, but easy in the way that it's accessible. Number 6, eat or drink something. I know this one can be one of the most beneficial things, but I also know can be one of the hardest things. I always say try to drink some water. Eating can be a really hard one, especially if you have a past with an eating disorder, if you associate food with worthiness. I know in the past when I used to get overwhelmed, my punishment to myself in those moments, because that's what I would do. I would punish myself when I felt that way, is I wouldn't let myself eat. That felt really good for me. Some people do the opposite, where they binge eat when they feel that way. Knowing that all these things that we do are ways that we try to soothe ourselves without realizing it in hindsight. It's the same with drugs and alcohol. We don't realize it, but in a lot of ways, what it's doing is it's calming us down. It makes us feel good. These are techniques that I want us to utilize to be more proactive in making ourselves feel good, of knowing that you don't need to drown yourself in drugs or alcohol to feel safe and feel good and to calm yourself down. But because in society, those are such utilized ways and they've become so glorified, we feel so much permission to do them. But without doing this stuff first and bringing our body back online, those will actually just heighten and worsen all the effects that we're feeling, meaning that we're going to need to do them more. So eating or drinking something is one of the best ways that we can calm ourselves down. Because also likely, I know for me, when I feel super anxious or disconnected or tired, it's because I haven't eaten anything and my blood sugars drop so much that it's triggered something within me to say, hey, I need something right now. Anytime our body's in that state, it's just like a baby. It needs something. It needs tended to. It's hungry. It's thirsty. It needs to go to the bathroom. It needs to go for a walk. It needs love. It needs seen. It needs to be accepted. When we feel that way, we're not that different than infants. Yet we treat ourselves like, imagine telling an infant that's crying, like, get over it. Like, you're tougher than that. This doesn't matter. Your emotions don't matter. They do. And it doesn't change as we get older, except for we feel like it's not as important. But if we do not begin to give ourselves the permission first to tend to ourselves, again, how can we expect anybody else around us to be able to calm us down? We have to get good at doing this for ourselves, knowing that inevitably we'll be able to lean on other people. Number 7, journal, color, play with some kind of fidget technique, mindless activities. Journaling could be a really overwhelming one, but I know for me that's super helpful. When I'm feeling overwhelmed, I like to do a brain dump. Basically, what that means is I open my journal, I put the pen, and I just write for 10 minutes, whatever comes to mind. It makes no sense. I jump from one thing to the next, from the past to the future to the present, to talking about whatever. But it helps my brain be able to dump out what it's thinking about. Coloring is a great one that we can just do mindlessly. Having some kind of fidget. I've shown you guys my little wiener dog here multiple times that I play with all the time. It's just little fidgety things that we can do with our hands to bring us back online and also keeps us safe. Unfortunately, when we have these, mindsets and we get into these states, for some of us, self-harm can also come into play, which I know is a hard topic to talk about, but I do think it's important to talk about. And so when I used to have clients who I knew would practice self-harm when they felt this way, because again, in those moments, it's serving them, it feels good. You feel empowered. You feel in control. And so when I could encourage them to utilize something like this instead, they're still physiologically getting that need out of their body to do something physically with their hands, but they're not posing harm to themselves. And again, if that is you, please, please, please seek professional help. You are so deserving of it. And I know that there's a lot of shame that can surface with these topics, but I want you to know you're not alone. I've dealt with that. I've been through that. I understand it. I get that it feels good, but at the same time, you're so worthy to have other techniques that can serve you better than hurting your beautiful body. So that is number 7. Number 8, this one is one that I love, and I always have a jar or a little container beside me full of like miscellaneous candies and mints. There's ginger in there. There's like those old-fashioned strawberry ones that are super good and underrated. But that is to chew gum, to suck on something, do anything that's going to stimulate your vagus nerve. Some other things that we can do is singing and humming. What this is doing is when we stimulate our vagus nerve and our vocal cords, when we stimulate our vocal cords, it activates our vagus nerve. Our vagus nerve is responsible for regulating our internal organ systems. So our heart rate, our breathing. Those are the 2 things that get activated when we're shifting into that overwhelmed state. This was one of my favorite techniques to use with clients in sessions. And also, realizing this just right now in hindsight, I used to chew gum all the time when I was taking tests in high school. This was something that my teacher had encouraged us to do, and I never really understood why at the moment. And now I'm realizing right now that because when we do that, we keep our thinking brain online. It doesn't allow us so much to go internally, and it allows us to kind of keep the noggin flowing. And so I'm someone who always has gum with me, always, 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 because I know that if I get overwhelmed, I can just chew gum and it helps to regulate me. Again, we all have different relationships with these things, but sometimes even just humming to yourself. If you can just walk down the hallway and hum a little song, notice how that feels. Again, the goal of me writing so many of these down is for you to just try one and start with it and see how it feels. You might think 5 of these are absolutely stupid and they would not serve you, but they could also be really helpful for somebody else. And so notice how these land for you. But I know that that one has been really, really, really helpful for clients that I've worked with and has been really, really helpful for me. And you get an excuse to like eat a candy, which is always super fun. Okay, number 9. I just started doing this one and I am loving it. I wish I knew more of the science behind it because there is a ton. I don't. I just started incorporating this one, so I wanted to share it with you all, but I'm not going to overshare it again because I don't know enough science to back it up, but I do know that it does ring true. And that is to lay on your back on the floor with your feet up on the wall. So you're basically like this little L shape. I did some quick research and basically just says that it allows your body and your mind to relax and relieve stress and tension. Again, that's great, very surface level. I'm going to be curious and going to dig deeper on why that is. What does that do? Does it reduce blood flow to the mind? Does it allow the blood flow to come down from your legs and more to go to your brain? Again, something that I want to learn more of. This is one that I've been taught by many, many of my friends is really helpful for them. And something that we can so easily do. Imagine at the end of the day, you just lay on the floor on your back, you're physically grounded, and you just hum some songs and do butterfly tapping. That sounds so magical to me to the point that I kind of want to do that right now because my back is absolutely killing me. But that is number 9. Or I guess that's number 10. That is all of them because I did that one first. Oh my goodness, you guys. Okay, well, I said all these numbers very miscued, so I was always one behind what I meant. I hope you guys enjoyed these. I encourage you to write them down and just pick one and see how it feels for you. Start with what seems accessible and not too overwhelming in the moment. Again, I want you to know and feel the permission that whatever it is you're feeling, it will pass. It will pass. But I do want to preface that it will continue to surface if you don't tend to what it is that's going on beneath it. Something within you is communicating. Something in you loves you so much that it wants you to know that something is wrong. It is our responsibility on the outside to tend to all those feelings and emotions that our body has done such a great job of kind of storing and processing as best as possible for us. But it is our job externally to do the work on the outside to tend to our body. So I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you know how worthy you are of each and every one of these. And most importantly, I hope you know how not alone you are. When I get into those states, again, I feel like it's me against the world. Nobody will understand. Nobody knows what this feels like. I'm completely by myself. Trust me, you are not. You are not alone, and I hope that you know that. And again, I love you so much, and I'm so grateful that you are here, and I hope that at least one of these helps you and serves you in some way, shape, or form. So I hope you're having a great day, a great week, and I look forward to chatting to y'all next week. Bye, you guys.